When formatting a document that uses lists, you may want to adjust the space that appears just before and just after the list. In this video, I explain how vertical spacing works and how you can adjust that spacing to get the effect that you need. Take a look at the document that I have on the screen here. Notice that I have a few paragraphs of text, and there's a bulleted list within the text. The text itself isn't really important. What I want to focus on is the spacing between the paragraphs. Whenever we talk about spacing within your document, it's very helpful to fully understand how Word views your text. Critical to that understanding is realizing that each element in your list is a discrete paragraph. In addition, it's a fair bet that there's a paragraph before the list and a paragraph after the list. The easy way to see if this is the case is to turn on the Show Hide tool. That's available on the Home tab of the ribbon, and it looks like a backwards P right up here. It's Show Hide. We click on that, and all of a sudden we can see the non-printing marks that are embedded within this Word document. With the tool turned on, I can see where each hard return is within the document. These mark the end of paragraphs. Word considers everything from one of these markers to the next to be a paragraph. That means that I have quite a few paragraphs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Vertical spacing for paragraphs is controlled by settings either in the style definition or in the paragraph dialog box. As an example, you can see that each of these paragraphs is formatted using the normal style. That is visible here on the Home tab of the ribbon in the Style Gallery. I'm going to click on this small icon near the bottom of the Style Gallery to display the Styles task pane at the right side of the document. Here you can also see that the normal style is in use for various paragraphs within this document. What I can do within the Styles task pane, however, is to go right over here and click this down arrow, and now I can choose to modify the style. That displays the Modify Style dialog box. I want to choose Format down here in the very bottom left-hand corner of this dialog box, and then I'm going to choose Paragraph. That displays the Paragraph dialog box. Here we can change the paragraph formatting used for the normal style because that's the one that we're modifying within the Styles task pane. By default, you should see the Indents and Spacing tab right here. The pertinent controls for vertical spacing are the before, after, and line spacing controls. If you want to adjust spacing within a paragraph, meaning between lines of the paragraph, then you would use the line spacing control. This setting can be adjusted to just about anything that makes sense for your document. In this case, though, I want to focus on the before and after settings. These controls allow you to specify how much space should appear before and after any paragraph that uses the normal style. You can see that these are set to 0 points right now. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to change the after setting to 12. Since there are 72 points in an inch, this means that normal paragraphs, those formatted with the normal style, will have 1/6 of an inch after them. Once I click on OK to close the dialog boxes, notice what happened within my document. All of a sudden, I have additional space after each of the paragraphs. That's because the paragraphs have the normal style associated with them. This also means that we can get rid of these empty paragraphs in here. They were originally put in to space things out, but now we don't need them. Why? Because the spacing, the vertical spacing, is taken care of by the style itself. So I'm going to get rid of all of these empty paragraphs within this document. Each of the paragraphs has the spacing after it except for those in the bulleted list. When these paragraphs were selected and the bulleted list tool was clicked on the Home tab of the ribbon, Word converted them to a bulleted list by automatically applying the list paragraph style. It doesn't really matter if you pay attention to styles or not. As I said, Word does this automatically when you use the bulleted list tool. The definition for this list paragraph style is different than it is for the normal style. In this instance, I'm going to place my insertion pointer right here within the first paragraph of this sequence of bulleted list items. Then I'm going to go ahead and display the paragraph dialog box. I'm going to do this right up here. It's this icon in the paragraph group up here. When I click on it, I can see the paragraph dialog box. Note that for this paragraph, it shows that there should be 12 points of space after the paragraph. Yet you can see that there is no space after it. That's because of this setting right down here. Don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. This setting affects the vertical spacing of paragraphs in the document. The first and second paragraphs both use the normal style, and that definition specifies 12 points after the paragraph. That style definition also has this do not add space setting cleared. When Word changed the paragraphs of the bulleted list to the list paragraph style, then the extra 12 points of spacing in the after setting is overridden by the checkbox setting here. So no extra spacing appears between paragraphs 3 and 4 and paragraphs 4 and 5 because they all use the same list paragraph style. Does that sound confusing? It can be, unless you keep in mind how all these settings work in relation to each other. So if you want additional spacing between paragraphs 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, those are the ones in the bulleted list, then you need to either explicitly clear the don't add space between paragraphs of the same style checkbox for those paragraphs, or alternatively, clear the checkbox in the list paragraph style definition. If I want to affect just the spacing before the bulleted list, I can do so by using the controls in the paragraph dialog box. All I would need to do is to change the setting in the before control to reflect the spacing desired. It gets a little bit tricky here though, because in some versions of Word, spacing that we use in here in the before and after can be cumulative, meaning that if one paragraph has 12 points after, and then we, in the next paragraph, have 6 points before, then we end up with 18 points between those two paragraphs. Other versions of Word, such as the one with Microsoft Office 365 like I'm using here, don't do the cumulative effect. What they do is they use the larger of the before or after setting. So for instance, if I change before to 12 points, it's not going to mean that there's going to be 24 points between the paragraphs. What it means is that there'll still be 12 points because that's the largest setting there. But if I change this to 18 points or even 24 points, then when I click on OK, you can see that it increased the space between these two paragraphs. If you work with quite a few lists, then these steps can become rather tedious. The steps of making changes to individual paragraphs. The best, easiest, and fastest approach is to create your own style definitions for your lists. For each list, you would define 3 styles. One to be applied to the first list element, one for the final list element, and one for all of the other list elements within the list. Define the desired vertical spacing in each style definition, then apply the styles to the elements in your list, and you're good to go. If you want more information about creating and working with styles, I'll suggest my Mastering Styles and Templates course. I include a link to the course in the notes just below this video. Speaking of this video, I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, please click the subscribe button and then click the bell icon. That way you'll be informed whenever I add a new video to the Word Tips channel. Thanks for spending a few moments with me today.